Yeah. I'll ask the clerk of the board, do we have a quorum to begin with? Leggett, Simpson, Bramer, Diamond, Driscoll, Sieber, and Shepler. I'll say there is. Okay. We'll open up the Public Safety Committee. We will begin by approving minutes of prior committee meetings. We've had several between our last one and now. Who would like to move that? And I cannot see it. Thank you, Supervisor Sieber. I cannot see anybody in the boardroom. Thank you, Supervisor Driscoll, for the second on that. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? No. Okay, motion carries. First up is Director LaFleur, Office of Emergency Services. Brian, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My agenda is quite small here today. Item number 1 is a request for a resolution to extend the existing contract we have with the Glens Falls Fire Department for our cause and origin fire investigation services. This is a contract we do each year. We have funding in our budget for that. So this is a typical one.
Okay, a motion bring it to the floor by Supervisor Driscoll. Is there a second?
Second.
Was that Supervisor Diamond? Did I hear? Okay. First and a second. Any discussion? Brian, about how many hours does it go in per year on this?
Well, there doesn't seem to be anything that is consistent. We generally do about 15 of these investigations per year. An average of the minimum call out is 4 hours, 2 guys. Most of them, they can do their outside work within the 4 hours as long as the fire department stays to help them. Some of them take a lot longer. I will bring up one other thing. I appreciate you bringing that up, Craig. One of the things we're running into is, as is typical, the state of New York has now changed the amount of training that is required for these investigators to have in order to maintain their certification. Unfortunately, not what I would consider enough of the firefighters in Glens Falls have that certification or have not been able to get to that level. And what's the sticking point is that they are required to have X number of hours of field work, of actual working out at fire scenes. The number of fire scenes that we call them to compared to the number of people that need those hours is becoming a little bit of an issue. So we have the money in the budget. We may start to use them a little more. I've always been circumspect in not calling them unless I needed to because we pay them. At this point, I think I'm going to be asking my deputies to, if there is any question at all, we will bring them out, and I believe we'll be okay budget-wise. But if someone asks, why are we using them a little more than we used to, it's important working with Chief Schrammel to make sure that we don't use the same guys over and over again, that we spread it out so there are people that need it can get the hours necessary.
Thank you for that explanation.
Number 2 is a request to correct the appointments of the members of Fire Advisory Board.
I think we might need Director LaFleur, I think we need to do a vote on that.
Oh, I'm sorry, sir.
Yeah, that's quite all right. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Director LaFleur, go ahead.
Thank you. The number 2 one is a very simple one. This is to correct the appointments of the members of the Fire Advisory Board. It's just a clerical error that if you look on your last sheet, if you have it in front of you, you'll see we have the Fire Advisory Board, which is made up of the volunteer chiefs. And then below that is the members of my staff, the EMS coordinator and others that are on that. When this was sent out and it was put in place for the oaths of office to be given out to need to be done, the section at the bottom was left out, so not everybody was included in the last resolution. So all we're doing is correcting that.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor.
So moved.
Thank you, Supervisor Sieber. Second. Supervisor Driscoll. Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you, Supervisor, Director LaFleur. Any discussion? Any review of anything, Brian?
Only that I am soliciting volunteers to help me clean up my office. We'll
bring the truck. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see a lot of hands up on that one. But that's all right.
We'll bring the cake. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
All I have is the term.
Any public comment?
No, Chairman Leggett, no public comment on YouTube.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. Okay, with that, then we will close the section for the Office of Emergency Services. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Next up is Sheriff. Okay. Sheriff LaFar, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay, good morning. Sorry about that.
that's all right. Welcome.
Thank you. We have several items on our agenda, but they're all pretty quick and easy. Items number 1 through 7, they're all extensions of existing or pre-existing contracts. 3 through 7 are asking for a new agreement only because the prior agreements terminated without an opportunity to renew. They are all vendors that we have done business with for several years. I don't know if it's easiest to go through item by item or if you'd like to do 1 through 7 collectively.
Let's start with number 1.
Number 1 is a request to extend our agreement with Wells Communication Services, and that's just for the maintenance and repairs of our consoles in the Emergency Communication Center.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor. Give me help here with the boardroom. I do not see anybody there, so would like everybody to fully participate in this rather than just the ones we can see on board, on Zoom.
Supervisor Shepler is making the motion.
Okay, thank you, Supervisor Shepler. And a second? Supervisor Driscoll, thank you very much, Ben. Okay, motion is on the floor here. On the information that you have in the packet here, Sheriff, it looks like there was no resolution for 2019 or 2020?
I did see that, and I don't know how that occurred, but we're working off, it looks like the last resolution was 232 of 2018.
Yeah. Okay.
Unless that it's possible that those were just able to be renewed for the extra remaining years.
Okay. Yeah, by extension.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing no opposition, motion carries. Okay, number 2.
Item 2 is an extension of an agreement with Capital Digitronics for 2 radio frequencies. This was a 5-year lease prior. It's a $5,000 lease for the next 5 years. These 2 frequencies are necessary in Warren County. One is 1/2 of our dispatch frequency and the other is 1/2 of EMS control. They would work with us and try to go through an agreement where we could purchase those. If we were to look to purchase them, they'd be anywhere between $17,000 to $23,000. We talked and thought it would be best during these times to just go through a 5-year lease. So it's $1,000 a year to continue to lease these frequencies.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor, please. Supervisor Seaver, thank you. Is there a second?
Supervisor Simpson is making this motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Simpson. And any questions? Any discussion? Sheriff,
Yes.
I see in the contract where the Warren County could buy if they were available.
Yeah.
So are you saying that they are now available and we could if we really wanted to?
They would work with us to purchase these, and eventually it's something, it's going to be necessary for the county. We don't want to lose these frequencies, but in the times that we're in, we just thought it would be more acceptable to the board to just continue the lease given the low rate for the lease annually.
Right, very good, thank you. Okay, no further discussion, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None, motion carries, thank you. Number 3?
Number 3 is to enter into, which is actually an extension of an agreement with LexisNexis. They provide the legal law library services for our inmates in the correctional facility. This is something that is paid for out of inmate commissary funds.
Okay, motion to bring it to the floor.
Supervisor Simpson is making the motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Simpson. Second?
Mr. Diamond will second the motion.
Thank you, Supervisor Diamond. Discussion?
I've got a question.
Mr. Simpson has a question.
Thank you. Go ahead, Supervisor Simpson.
So Sheriff, that is completely paid for by the commissary, by the fees?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
Yeah. Sheriff, on the LexisNexis, this might have been brought up in a previous meeting about, is there any shared services? We have other departments that also use them. Is there a better price we could get because the county does use LexisNexis and other departments as well?
I personally have never researched that option. I know that they held our rates from years prior, and our rate is consistent with the rate that they provide to other county correctional facilities throughout the state.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Good. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 4.
Number 4 is a request to enter into an agreement, and again, just continue our agreement with DSS for the fraud investigator.
Okay. Motion to bring that to the floor. Supervisor Driscoll, second, please.
Supervisor Simpson will second.
Thank you, Supervisor Simpson. Any discussion on this? What's this, number 4? Okay. Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? None. Motion carries. Number 5.
Number 5 is a request to enter into an agreement with DSS to continue our security services throughout the Municipal Center campus.
Okay, motion to bring that to the floor. Supervisor Shepler and Supervisor Driscoll on a second. Thank you. Discussion? And Sheriff, staffing this has been going okay?
Yes, we're doing all right there.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Number 6.
Number 6 is a request to enter into an agreement with Electronic Office Supplies. It's a vendor that we've used for several years to provide maintenance of a copier in our central records. And their agreement for the actual maintenance is $350 a year.
Okay,
With an
motion to
amount not
bring
to exceed $1,000 for repairs.
Okay. Good to have that in there. All those, motion to bring it to the floor. Supervisor Shepler, and a second by Supervisor Sieber. Thank you. Discussion. Sheriff, I see in some of the documents that you included here that there was something about no need for your office to come before the board for things under 5,000. Was I reading that correctly?
That's an old blanket resolution, I think, comes through the board itself and covers any request below $5,000. It's from 2010.
But we still bring these, $1,000 requests forward?
I think they're sent to you with this resolution. I'm not sure. If I'm doing something I don't need to do, then I will no longer do it.
Okay, maybe we can just discuss that after committee meeting.
Okay.
Check with Administrator Moore. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7.
Number 7 is a request to enter into an agreement with NEC. They're the vendor who services and maintains our phone systems throughout the sheriff's office. This is really an extension of an agreement for services that, again, we've been receiving for years.
Okay. Bring it to the floor.
So moved.
Supervisor Simpson, it sounds like. Is there a second? Supervisor Shepler, any discussion? And call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 8.
This is a request to amend the county budget, and it's just to reflect the appropriations and expense codes for the school resource officers for the first half of the school year.
Motion to bring it to the floor.
I'll move that.
Supervisor Simpson, a second. Supervisor Driscoll, thank you. And what, are there changes here?
No, everything stayed pretty much consistent. Lake Luzerne went up last year. They requested a waiver for their 2 employees, and I believe all the other schools are consistent with years prior.
Okay. And just for a point of information here, we break these into 2 because our fiscal year does not coincide with the school fiscal year. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Thank you. Any discussion, further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And opposed? None. Motion carries. Number 9.
Number 9 is a request to amend the county budget. We had funds remaining in a grant, the Sheriff's Law Enforcement Terrorism Prevention Program grant that we were looking to utilize, but it's not in this year's budget. We're just looking to transfer it into the 2020 budget, $10,826.
Okay, motion to bring that to the floor.
I'll move it.
Yeah, okay. Supervisor Sieber with a second by Supervisor Simpson. Thank you. Any discussion? Call the question. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And Sheriff, you have a plan for this money?
We do, and I know there are a number of items. I believe that is going to be used for tactical equipment.
Which would consist of?
I don't want to misspeak for that specific one. The undersheriff has the plans laid out. We're looking to purchase response gear for our tactical team helmets. We're also looking to purchase some equipment that would be utilized by frontline officers, and that would be in response to a major occurrence, a protest, or something like like that, like shields and riot control gear. I believe this one is earmarked for helmets.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Number 10,
Number 10, OES was awarded a grant on September 3rd. The grant total was $76,370. Of that, 25% to be used by law enforcement. So that total is $19,093. It's just a request to amend our budget to appropriate $19,093 from this grant.
motion to bring it to the floor.
So moved.
Supervisor Simpson, a second. Supervisor Driscoll, thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And do you have a plan for that money?
Again, that's going to be one of those two purchases. I'm not sure exactly where Terry has that set up for those two grants. He's working with those.
Thank you. Number 11, stop DWI.
Number 11 and number 12 are essentially the same. One is just a request to accept a grant. The other is a request to amend the budget. We were awarded on October 2nd a grant for Crackdown enforcement. It's a $10,000 grant through the Stop DWI program.
Okay. I'll request that 11 and 12 be brought to the floor together. Is somebody like to make that motion?
Put the motion forward.
Mr. Diamond will make the motion.
And Supervisor Shepler on a second. Thank you. Any discussion on this?
Mr. Diamond has a question.
Supervisor Diamond?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This question goes to the sheriff. Is this in addition to the other DWI grant that we're entitled to?
Yes, this is specific. It's a Crackdown enforcement grant. It's going to run from October 30th of this year to September 6th of 2021. And there are, specific things that they're looking for us to do with these funds. It's a reimbursement of overtime expenses for what they're requesting.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Number 13,
Number 13 is a request to amend a resolution, number 431 of 2018. The resolution provided for a funding source for a geodiverse redundant 911 logging system for upgrades. The grant allows us to make the upgrades, but then the annual support cannot be paid for out of grant funds. It was paid this year out of contracts, but it was paid without actually having the correct code in the resolution. So this request is simply not to remove the prior code, because that is where the funding paid the actual upgrade, but to just add budget code 470 out of the 911 center to pay for the annual support and maintenance fees.
who'd like to make that motion? Supervisor Sieber, and a second by Supervisor Shepler. You good with that?
Thank you.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And number 14.
Number 14 is a request to create a position of Stop DWI Coordinator part-time. We are still working with Trish to try to come up with a notice for that and to hammer down the particulars for that position. But this is a request for us to create that position with a part-time salary of $20.37.
Motion, bring it to the floor. Everybody tired here? We need more coffee? Supervisor Driscoll, thank you. On a first and a second by Supervisor Shepler. Discussion. Supervisor Sieber.
Thank you. Sheriff, is that the $20 per hour? Would that be capped at the $10,000 limit?
I'm not certain, Rachel. The undersheriff is the one who has been putting the most effort and time into this. I know that it would be a reduction as opposed to what has been paid in the past, but as far as a $10,000 cap, I'm not sure.
My only thoughts to that, Sheriff, and for our committee to consider is, and maybe I'm confusing the numbers. I thought when we looked at the budget previously that it was a small amount. It might have even been $6,000. That was the actual revenue towards the position of coordinator. So it might have actually been less than that. But, I had voiced concern previously on it. And then also at the budget meeting, my only concern, Jim, and I supported the previous resolutions regarding the Stop DWI money, because I think it is critical that we have these positions, and I support that program. At this time, I'm just hesitant to be creating part-time positions and, recognizing previously that we didn't have law enforcement, monitoring it or coordinating the efforts for this position. I understand it's been sent over to your department. I've made some suggestions about maybe working with probation or the DA's office, or utilizing someone that, maybe is looking for additional duties or experience. But I'm not convinced that this needs to be a law enforcement position in terms of creating a part-time patrol officer to do this. My questions would be more focused around, are there other civilians and support staff that perhaps could take this on as well? So for multiple reasons, I guess I have some concerns, but certainly support the program overall.
Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Sieber. I'm looking in the 2019 budget here under A3315, and it looks like the wage on the tentative budget was $11,279 for that position in 2019. Just to put that into perspective. Supervisor Moore, Administrator Moore.
Yeah, I can help on the numbers. The $10,000, I think, is that's the Crackdown grant that we is that where you pull the 10,000?
Yes.
Oh yeah, I just think I confused those.
Yeah. The actual program is much larger than the 10,000. The 10,000 is supplemental. I believe it's for overtime in the sheriff's office. Is that correct, Sheriff?
That's correct. I was not understanding what you were asking either. That is completely separate. That is a patrol officer going out doing a specific targeted enforcement that the program is asking us to do, and then getting reimbursed for those efforts.
The budget. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I just want to clarify
sorry.
as you're answering this, Ryan. I thought the Stop DWI, the request for a part-time position, related to what Patty Miller was doing before. And I thought that after all the revenues were paid out and funneled to the municipalities, that it was a very low amount that was an add-on, that went into her salary. But am I wrong on that?
No, you're not wrong. That's what I'm getting to. The proposed salary with this hourly rate, I believe between the two sets of duties, DWI and traffic safety, proposed salary at this hourly rate would be in the neighborhood of $18,000. Patty's this position's budgeted in two different areas of the budget, Craig. So you were looking at the DWI position. If you add to it the budget that we had for this year for traffic safety, the number was $23,310. So that's the proposed savings that we'd be looking at, is $5,310 to do it this way. It's budgeted at 1,092 hours. If you in terms of the technicalities here, and the expiring hourly rate would have been 21.35. So about a reduction of $1.
Thank you, Ryan. Supervisor Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I got a couple of questions for the sheriff in regards to this position. We discussed this a little bit in detail at the last meeting we had. What's changed in the job description or job title from the last meeting we had?
We're still trying to figure that out, Supervisor Diamond. The job description that was provided and something that was used in the past was, it required a college education, and it was more geared towards a grant writer. And there is a grant component to this, definitely. Our concern is trying to recruit somebody to work 2 days a week that has a college degree is going to be really challenging. And from our sheriff's office perspective, if this is something we're going to take on, the time spent at a desk, a terminal, going through grants and spreadsheets is going to be far less than the time we would like to see somebody out in the field, at events, in a school, talking about DWI and really promoting the program, reducing DWI, traffic enforcement, traffic safety, going out to community groups, you know, and we want to make sure that the right person is selected to be out in the public that represents our sheriff's office as best as possible.
Thank you. I've got another question. At this time, the undersheriff currently has the oversight of this program, correct?
Yes.
And to my perspective, I haven't heard anything negative about his performance, and I admire the fact that he's taken on a little bit more responsibility. Wouldn't that monies, by creating a new position, be better used out in the community servicing DWIs rather than putting on another part-time staff person to do something that's already being coordinated with?
As our department head, we're not a group that you'll ever hear complain, and our undersheriff is often the first one in the building and the last one out. And we're working pretty hard over here. We're helping out with the COVID response. We're helping the health department, and we've got a new requirement to come up with a plan for police reform in Warren County. The undersheriff has rolled up his sleeves with me, and we're working very hard at taking that seriously, you know, seeing it as an opportunity for our county. He's working his tail off, and this is something that he can't stay on top of. And again, knowing that right now he's been going back and forth with Tammy DiLorenzo, and just trying to make sure that nothing falls behind as far as the funding goes and the book work, that he's doing okay with. But to try to say that we'd like to get him out to a luncheon somewhere or into a school to really do what the spirit of this program is intended to do, he will not have that time to do that. I can tell you with absolute certainty.
Thank you. Any other discussion on this motion? Sheriff, what would be, once we create this new part-time position, what's the process from here? What do you plan to do?
We want to continue to work with Trish Nettinger to try to come up with a posting so that we can recruit. And Supervisor Leggett, if I'm being totally honest with you, I don't know how successful we're going to be even recruiting somebody at this point. We're going to do our best. We're going to, you know, we'll have open lines of communications with anybody that wants to be involved and have their input, and try to select a candidate, somebody, bring them in for interviews that will serve the county well. But I don't know the timeline. Trish sent over some proposed job postings, and the undersheriff and I are looking at them and trying to hammer out some revisions just to make sure that we're not pigeonholing the county with applicants.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Yep. Okay, so motion on the floor. I'll call the question.
I have a question, Craig, Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen these in actions at many events where the different sheriff's departments or different people attend these events. I think they're very important, but I would suggest, Jim, if you need some help, check with Albany County, because I've seen them at events at Times Union Center, not recently, but in the last 2 or 3 years. So there may be a sheriff's department that is already doing this and is using the funds to pay for deputies on their off days or on overtime. So, I mean, I think it's important. I think we need to move ahead with this, but there may be somebody else already doing this. You could, as a resource.
Those opportunities are there. Fortunately, this year we, not to say it was really a terrible thing, but for our sheriff's office, having Great Escape not open for business was a little bit of a relief because our officers they're struggling we're struggling a little bit to get them to accept the overtime. You know, these types of duties, if we have an event that takes place this Saturday and we can't get anybody to fill it on overtime and that's our plan, well, now you're sticking somebody to perform this function, and that's really not going to be the best service. The county's not going to receive the best service from somebody that doesn't want to be there. And I think if you have continuity, if you have somebody who is a coordinator, that's their role, that's what they do, their area of expertise, I think you're going to get the best consistency and the best, again, service to our county.
Supervisor Sieber.
Just, you know, it's been said a few times during this call. I just want to echo my support and, you know, just to talk about what Patty Miller did. I thought she was an excellent representative for our county for multiple years on the Stop DWI program and traffic safety and working with OES and multiple departments. I thought she did a really good job, and she was not an officer. She was not full-time in just that role. And I still say that there's a lot of opportunities for people within our county and outside. I mean, the recruitment process, I mean, I teach college students. I see them all day long want a foot in the door and a part-time position. And I just think that as we make this law enforcement dependent, meaning you have to have those credentials, we limit a lot of possibilities as well. And I'm just not a believer that they're the only ones that can do this job well. I think we've proven that in the past. And, you know, again, Jim, yeah, I support the program wholeheartedly. But I'm definitely a no vote in creating this for a part-time position for those reasons. But I do think if you remove those requirements, you may see a lot of recruitment for it, because we often hire people part-time with the hopes that, you know, they get experience and they move on into different counties and other places as well. So I just, having worked with this program for decades, I think there's a lot of potential.
Thank you. And I have to say publicly, our plan for moving forward, if this is something that we retain, and we do, there's no reflection upon the work of Patty Miller. I agree with you, Supervisor Sieber. She did an outstanding job. Unfortunately, we don't have her as a resource any longer. And this is not something that we're chasing after. This is something that we were asked to do. And if the board, if it's your wish to, you know, deliver it to another department, we are fine with that. If you think the service could be provided better through some other group or department head or entity, we are not going to fight you.
And Sheriff, there's no preclusion that a civilian would be able to take on this job at this point in time, correct? We're still figuring out
There is not. You know, I think, again, our pool of people, all business is struggling to get good candidates, good applicants. And, you know, we've already been kicking the can a little bit here in our sheriff's office, trying to come up with ideas of people who we would hire. And, you know, we're struggling a little bit. I'm sure if you put out a public posting and civil service put out their posting, you might get a few more, but I don't know. I think we're going to struggle to find somebody, and it really needs to be the right person for this program to be successful.
Well, thank you. I'm sure we'll get this on the road. I'm going to call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Supervisor Diamond has another question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Supervisor Diamond, I don't see you there. I don't mean to ignore you.
No,
Go ahead, Supervisor Diamond.
It makes it difficult. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To the Sheriff, Jim, I understand the importance of having a DWI program. And as I said earlier, Under Sheriff has done a great job. Have you considered talking to the city of Glens Falls and trying to work with them to maybe help coordinate this DWI program?
We do. Part of this program is doing joint efforts with them. It's a requirement that we work in conjunction with one another. I know that they're very big on DWI enforcement as we are, and we do work with them regularly.
How about folk by, you know, in regards to administrative responsibilities?
That's never come up, as it's not been a discussion on our end. I don't even know how that would work as far as trying to work with the board to break up this grant between two municipalities.
Well, I don't think that would be the difficult aspect of it, but I could be wrong. But the question would be, that should be asked is, do they have the abilities, and are they willing to help administer the grant and represent the county as a whole? As you mentioned earlier, that there's sometimes that, you know, the sheriff's department is understaffed and they can't fulfill some of our obligations. Even offering overtime, maybe you could offer the overtime to the city of Glens Falls and they'd be willing to help. Have we had that discussion in like a shared services arrangement?
We have not.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Any other discussion? We'll call the question then. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I'm opposed.
Two opposed. And we had a majority in favor. I don't see everybody. Amanda, if you could help me with that.
I only have Mr. Diamond and Ms. Seaver opposed.
Okay. I'll call the decision to be in the affirmative. Motion carries. Thank you. Thank you, Sheriff. Any other discussion items on your agenda?
Yes, just to touch base, our current inmate population as of today is 87, and of those, 12 are federal inmates, so our population continues to climb.
Thank you. 12 federal. Good. Okay. And is there any comment from the public?
No, Chairman Leggett, no comment from the public at this point.
Thank you, Mr. Lehman. With that, I will call the sheriff's agenda closed, and I'd like to bring back on here Brian LaFleur. Now that all our business is out of the way, I'd like to commend Director LaFleur for all of his years at the Office of Emergency Services. Brian, was this our last committee meeting with you? Unmute there.
I'm not sure how that's going to go, Chairman. With Anne Marie, I'll be doing training with her, and then I will be the temporary fire coordinator until that position is filled. So I'll still be here. My guess is at that point in time, anything that I need for the committee, Anne Marie would bring forward.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you for all your dedication to this position. You've brought a tireless effort to it. It's a huge responsibility covering all the emergency services coordination throughout the county, and for all the grant funding that comes in that needs to be implemented and executed. You were the man for the job. Your previous experience coming in has set up the county very well, and as we've said before, you're a hard person to replace because of all your knowledge. The equipment that the Office of Emergency Service has now is impressive and also necessary, because as we know, when emergencies hit, you need things right away and things need to be coordinated. And you've done an excellent job on that. And on behalf of the whole committee here, I want to thank you very much for all of your years of service here to the county and your dedication. Again, I'll repeat, tireless. It's around the clock, and none of us really know how much is involved in all of it. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes. Is that Mr. McGowan?
It is. Thank you.
Yes.
Brian, I'm not on the committee, and I'd like to thank you from all the non-committee members too. And you know, I've been sitting here and I saw the look on your face when no one offered to help you clean up. So I'm reaching out my hand for you, my friend. All right. You deserve it. So you have my number. Whatever you need, let me know.
Thank you very much, Brad.
Yeah. Brian, I wanted to see what your office looked like before I volunteered. So now that you're on Zoom, I can see a little bit better. Yeah, count me in.
Well, there's probably a little more technology here than Anne Marie's going to want, but I'm glad to do whatever is necessary to give her the best office.
Thank you. Thank you. Supervisor Seaver, did you have your hand up? No, okay.
No, I was thinking out loud, and I think I was thinking with my hands. I apologize. But Brian, I will be more than happy to help clean out your office with you and tell you how wonderful you've been over all of the years and help in any way possible, and look forward to celebrating all those years of service.
Very good, thank you.
And with that, we'll adjourn the meeting. Motion and a second. Supervisor Shepler, all those in favor? Aye.